Today is the appearance of Srimati Janavama and also Srimati Sita Devi, and the disappearance of Madhu Pandit. Disappearance of Madhu Pandit and appearance of Sita Devi and Janava Devi today. I'm going to chant Jaya Radha Madhava first. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jaya Jaya Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jaya Jaya Guru Dev. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Asatara Parikacharya. His Divine Grace Charan Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Dantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Shri Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Shri Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Tamaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Pracharini Vishesha Sundari Kashi Tadri Shikharani Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Srimati Hare Krishna Prasad Swami Nityanamane Namo Hamsa Nakashaya Prabhupada Om Gyana Taramanda Sagananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unamitamina Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. So, today's the disappearance of Sri Madhu Pandit and Srimati Janava Devi and Srimati Sita Devi, Lord Ramachandra's Sita Devi. And I'm going to start with Madhu Pandit because there's not very much about him. And actually, Madhu Pandit isn't even mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But he he's known as a disciple, devotee, and follower of Gadadhar Pandit. And, we know who Gadadhar Pandit is. But what we do know is from the Bhakti Ratnakara, and he was a very exalted personality. He read the Srimad Bhagavatam every day, and his main sort of pastime is that Sri Gopinath appeared before him, and Gopinath he's one of the main deities in Vrindavan. We've heard of the Gopinath temple. However, Gopinath was taken to Jaipur when the Mughals had invaded Vrindavan and started tearing down all the beautiful temples there back in the day. And at some point, Sri Gopinath actually revealed himself to Madhu Pandit, and he became the servant of Sri Gopinath. And this is the deity that Brajanaba had installed in Vrindavan many, many years ago. And then when the Muslims had invaded around the 1600s, 1700s, he was taken there. And as a side note, the Gopinath deity in Jaipur, which is the original Gopinath deity, is said to resemble Lord Krishna from the shoulders to the waist, like perfectly resemble him in all features and the form. And the temple, actually, that we know now that still stands there, when the deity was there, just so happened there was a pastime that took place. Madhu Pandit was serving this deity for many years. He actually arranged for the temple to have the temple built. And actually, the story is much, much later. Janava Devi actually, she would go on parikram to Vrindavan from her place in Bengal, Navadvip. And she came to that temple. And it said that Gopinath jumped off the altar and took Janava Devi onto the altar and closed the curtains. And when the assembled Vaishnavas opened the curtain later, Janava Devi had disappeared, and only Gopinath was standing on the altar. And later the deity of Ananga Manjari, the younger sister of Radharani, was installed on the altar here. And so Janava Devi is actually Ananga Manjari in Krishna's pastimes. So there's a little bit of a connection there with Madhu Pandit and Janava Devi, which is, I don't know, coincidence, maybe, maybe not. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Janava Mata. And there's actually two stories that are sort of circulating or have circulated about Janava Mata and her marriage to Lord Nityananda. So Janava Mata was actually born to a devotee named Surya Das, and she had an older sister, Vasudha, and they had, Surya Das and his wife had two beautiful daughters. So the story is Surya Das, one of the stories I should say, is that Surya Das had a dream that he was marrying off his daughters to Lord Nityananda. And at the time, Lord Nityananda was very well known in Bengal, as an associate of Lord Chaitanya. And, was very revered, very well-loved. So he had this dream, and he couldn't get this dream out of his head. So finally, he told someone who was intimately associated with Lord Nityananda about the dream, that he was marrying his two daughters off to him. And then in another version of her marriage to Lord Nityananda himself could understand that Vasudha and Janava, they were actually incarnations of Balaram's wives, Braj, so Revati, like that. So Lord Nityananda had this vision that there was these two daughters of this gentleman, and he wanted to marry them because they were his eternal consorts. So he approached Surya Das and asked him, in which Surya Das refused because Nityananda was known as an avadut, so he was, Surya Das wasn't thinking that he was a householder type, although it is said that Lord Chaitanya advised him to take up that path because sannyas, basically Lord Chaitanya took sannyas so he could be more respected and would be able to preach, more this Vaishnava philosophy. But with Lord Nityananda, he thought it best that Lord Nityananda become a householder so he could stay in place and try to expand that out from within, instead of going around to, all over India to spread this sort of the message of, the Vaishnava cult, as it was called. So, anyway, Janava Devi had a marriage to Lord Nityananda, and so did Vasudha. It's not really mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it's interesting because I just found, I read a little bit of a snippet from Srila Prabhupada. He was in a conversation with Atreya Rishi, and Atreya Rishi was asking about the fallen position of the conditioned souls in Kali Yuga, and that Prabhupada was telling him that anybody can become Krishna conscious, even sort of dacoits, and he was sort of naming off a list. But in that particular conversation, he didn't say anything about women. And Atreya Rishi said, well, what about women? And that's when Prabhupada launched into a whole dissertation about that there's no prohibition, that anyone can, take this message. Anyone can actually, be Krishna conscious and be a guru. He was specifically speaking about that. So Prabhupada told this devotee that because he asked Prabhupada, well, where is this in your books? And Prabhupada said, it wasn't mentioned. I didn't mention. But all the acharyas have mentioned that Janava Devi was a great acharya in the Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage, actually. So today's her appearance day, and throughout our history, we've read a lot about Janava, but some of what she did is quite extraordinary. I didn't read, and there's not very much stated about Vasudha. Vasudha had 2 children, whilst Janava Devi did not have any children, any offspring from Lord Nityananda. And Vasudha's son, Veera Chandra, actually ended up taking Diksha initiation from Janava Devi, because over time, Janava again and again had shown herself to be very, very staunch in the practice of bhakti. She was very astute. She was very well read. She studied the scriptures very earnestly. Of course, being the wife of Lord Nityananda, I'm quite sure she was able to derive glean a lot of knowledge from him. But she was very scholarly. She was also very level-headed and extremely compassionate. She would give audience to anyone that wanted to speak about Krishna, and she herself would speak a lot of Hari Katha, and would relate to everyone she met, preach to others about the, importance of chanting, and she herself would chant. And probably one of the things she's most well known for is after her husband left, after Lord Chaitanya left, and she was still there. She was very instrumental in guiding sort of the second generation with Narottam Das Thakur and Srinivasacharya and Shamananda, who were the foremost kind of proponents at the time. They were distributing the literatures of the Goswamis. They were going into every town and village and talking to people about Krishna, taking up that mission of Lord Chaitanya. So Janava Mata actually, since she was, from the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, she was able to guide those personalities who were trying to further the bhakti message to the masses, even to the extent that she presided and guided over the very first Gora Purnima festival in Keturi. That was one of her main, I guess. She wasn't that outspoken of a person, She was a very humble person, and she, just executed her Krishna consciousness and talked to whoever came in her circle, but she wasn't someone that, was out on Harinam. I mean, it wasn't acceptable to do. So she was a little bit in the background, but in the background she was arranging all of the, she was arranging quite a lot of the pastimes. And the Keturi festival, probably everyone knows, is where Narottama Das Thakur had launched he had launched kind of the culture of the bhajans. There was the congregational chanting, and that was going on in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, but Narottama Das Thakur wrote so many sort of in separation type of songs that he brought to the world. And that culture of, that's actually it's one of the 9 processes of devotional service, but it's also something that, we know that singing the praises of the Lord or singing the glories of the Lord is prescribed for us in the Bhakti tradition, singing those glories. So Narottama Das Thakur sort of inaugurated those bhajans. We can read so many or see so many bhajans in just our little book, but he wrote so many bhajans, so many songs in glorification of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda and Krishna, of course of Krishna. And so Janava Mata, she kind of took his hand and guided him in that endeavor at the Keturi festival, which is the first, the very first Gora Purnima festival. That's the first large festival that was conceived by Narottama Das Thakur, and of course was, from the background, was encouraged by Janava Mata. So she lived her life in that way, and she worshiping Krishna, worshiping Lord Chaitanya, and as a Nanga Manjari, she's a very intimate associate of Krishna. So we can understand that she's a very exalted personality, and we hear a lot about her from, when you go to Vrindavan, there's the Janava Devi Baitak, where she would go and take her bath, and when she went on pilgrimage to Vrindavan. So she was definitely a role model for, females everywhere who, are just quietly executing their bhajan, their internal bhajan, and are able to, share that with others. She was a guru to many. She had many disciples, actually. She's not officially in our parampara, but she probably wouldn't want to be, because then there's, a target on the head. So I'm sure she's, she was guiding so many persons at the time, and she still is. There's temples for her in India. She's very well known, particularly in Bengal, obviously, because she spent most of her time there. And she still is a guru to many, who can guide us in this perfect execution of devotional service to the Lord. And in the same way, Srimati Sita Devi, and this is Lord Ramachandra's consort Sita. There's so much to talk about with Sita, we hear her praises, we hear her glories as the most chaste, the most devoted, the most beloved of the Lord Ramachandra. Sita Devi was actually found in a field, and Sita means, I guess it means sort of a yoke, so when someone is plowing a field using oxen, and they have those sort of plowshares, those sort of things that kind of drag along, and then you can do all the planting in the little furrows. That's actually what Sita means. So her father was plowing the fields one day, and Sita was in a little basket right in the ground as he was plowing. He discovered her and was astounded because he didn't have children. He was overwhelmed with joy because he had been praying, he and his wife had been praying for a child. And so Mother Bhumi, gave this beautiful child to her father, and she was brought up very nicely. And then when she was around 14, 15, or 16, like that, Parashuram, Lord Parashuram, who's an incarnation of Krishna, was visiting the lands, and her father invited him in, as was the custom to invite so many exalted personalities for water or to sit or to share Hari Katha. And Parashuram came and set down his enormous bow that he carried with him. Parashuram didn't look like an ordinary person. He was extremely, big. He was like probably a giant. Maybe in those times there was many giants, I would imagine, because that's how, there was all these. Only now in Kali Yuga are we shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, becoming dwarf-like. But I think it's said that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda were like 108 inches tall, right? It was like, 10 feet tall, and Krishna. So anyway, Parashuram was a large person, and he had an even larger bow. And set it down to go in and receive, the hosting of Sita's father. And they looked outside at some point to make sure, Sita was okay. She was in the yard, because she grew up alone. And Sita was had grabbed the bow, and she was kind of twirling it and using it as a hobby horse and jumping around and playing with it. And both Lord Parashuram and Sita's father were quite astounded seeing this young girl, just sort of twirling this huge thing around. And then the father thought, okay, Parashuram said, you're going to have to find her a very suitable candidate as a husband. This is no ordinary girl. And so her father, she wasn't ordinary. She was extremely beautiful, had all the good qualities, very sweet, same qualities as Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani has those 25 qualities that we hear about, where she's kind to elders, she's very magnanimous, she has all these qualities. So Sita had those same qualities. And so the father put the word out, that they were going to have a Swayamvara. And that's where, the girl generally, suitors come and they want to take the hand of, a suitable, fair maiden. So then Lord Shiva had offered, or there's two bows. There's this Parashuram's bow was the Vaishnava bow. It's called the Vaishnava bow. It's a very special bow. And I'm trying to remember Shiva's bow's name. I want to say it's, I can't remember the name of Shiva's bow, but it's supposed to look like a rainbow. I've read about it before. It's supposed to look like a rainbow, and it's huge. I mean, it's just enormous, And he had come, and, there was all this land. He had come to actually put this bow down. It was a large object that, I forgot exactly why he was going to put this bow down, but it became the resting place for a while. And the father of Sita, and Lord, through the advice of Parashuram, had decided that whoever was going to be able to pick up this bow, because Sita, she could pick it up. It was like no problem, whoever else could pick up this bow, that would be a suitable match, right? Because, no mere mortal could pick up this bow, So, did you find it? Pinaka, okay, yeah. The Pinaka bow. So Sita, waited. She waited, and then people were coming. All these princes from surrounding places. They were coming to both behold Sita and also try their hand to try to pick this bow up, because there was that little that requirement, And then she could choose her suitor. That's what the Swayamvara is she could actually choose, but this was a condition. So many suitors came, people were coming, trying to pick up the bow. No one could even budge it. It wasn't possible to even try to move it. And we've seen that depicted so many times in little plays. Everybody's coming, trying to lift the bow up, they can't get it. So finally, after innumerable, this went on for days, many, many tries. This went on for days, because everybody wanted the hand of Sita. Sita was like the perfect person, the perfect pretty girl. She was everything to the community and to her family, and everybody could discern that. So that went on for days, and finally, Lord Ramachandra and Lakshman showed up to see what was going on. And, Sita's Lord Ramachandra's eternal consort. So, obviously this wasn't an accident, but, the whole Leela is fun. So Lord Ramachandra showed up, and everybody was watching with bated breath, because there had been so many fails. There had been so many people that had failed. And finally, Lord Ramachandra stepped up. And he was, of course, well known throughout the land as Dasharath's, prodigal son, right? He stepped up and, he took it and he just lifted it up, and he actually was able to string it. And this is this huge thing, this huge object and so as soon as Sita saw that, she knew that was her eternal consort, and they were, meant to be together. So finally Sita was married off to Lord Ramachandra. And I mean, we know the Ramayana, Sita accompanied Lord Ramachandra everywhere, even to the forest, which wasn't really fit for living for a fine lady, you know. But she adopted the same sort of clothing, the same mannerism of living, because at that point they were having to live on roots and fruits, and that wasn't something that neither of them was used to. But she stood by Lord Ramachandra up until the point that Ravana came and deceived her and took her away. And I don't want to talk too much about the end game of Sita, but because it's actually quite depressing how all of that happened with her. But she was in the clutches of Ravana for quite a long time, but she did not submit to any of his advances nor his games. You know, he was extremely heinous and, tried to trick her and, threaten her and make her give in to his whims. But she wasn't having any of that. She was extremely staunch. She was extremely chaste, which, like Janava Devi, is another wonderful example, particularly in Kali Yuga, where being chaste to spouse, chaste to the guru, chaste to, so many things isn't really so important. It's not something that is valued so much because everybody's polluted and disturbed in Kali Yuga. So it's to be expected that, one isn't going to be, perfect like that. But that was Sita's main quality that I feel like is her, something that we all can sort of understand, that chastity that she exhibited, not only to her husband after, I think she was with Ravana for like, was it just a year? I thought it was, yeah, okay. So she was with him for a year, and, that's quite a long year. It seemed like 12 years or more from all of her trials and tribulations in that state, until finally Hanuman found her and was able to communicate to Lord Ramachandra where she was. And then Lord Ramachandra was able to come and try to, remove her from the clutches of Ravana. And Ravana would not really let her go lightly, even though, she had continually rebuked him and, paid no attention to his foolishness, his advances, his threats. She, just held steadfast and waited for her Ram, hope against hope. I mean, that's, a year is, even in our time, is quite a long time to wait for somebody. Sometimes we're so impatient. We are waiting for somebody for 5, 10, 15 minutes and, just seething at the end. But, and she knows that Lord Ramachandra's her beloved consort, and she knows his position. And he, ostensibly he could have showed up a lot sooner. But, to glorify Sita and to glorify, all of his persons that, personalities that helped to free her. I mean, everything was centered around taking her out of the clutches of Ravan. In fact, I was reading that Valmiki, the original title of the Ramayana was, I don't remember the translation, but it was basically Sita's huge ordeal. It was her big ordeal. It was her big lamentation. So the story of the Ramayana really is centered around Sita, because without Sita's kidnapping and subsequent rescue, there'd be no story of the Ramayan, right? You know, the Ramayan's a story of beautiful victory over darkness and defeating all of these lower personalities who propound these qualities. You know, the Ramayan's a very magnanimous literature to help everybody. Even now, it's so popular. It's so popular in parts of the world. Even, you know, people know about Lord Ramachandra. They have no idea about Krishna. You know, there's so many Ram Bhaktas in the world. And, you know, Ram and Sita, you know, they're inseparable. So we can understand that Sita also is glorified in that same way, starting with Valmiki, who wrote this, who, you know, who expounded on the whole story. So with Sita, you know, her appearance is, we can remember from her and also Janava Devi, their quiet and steady devotion. You know, they were both very, a little bit, you know, it doesn't seem like they're prominent. And then, you know, everything else is sort of put in front, but they were behind doing the good work, so to speak. You know, even Sita with Lord Ramachandra, she was, you know, keeping that fire burning to, you know, not only to rescue her, but just to take the evil down. You know, just to you know, minimize that influence. And remembering Sita Devi and also Janava Devi, we can just think about, you know, quietly being devoted, all the while strategizing how to glorify the Lord. She glorified Ramachandra by remaining chaste and by remaining devoted that whole time, you know, that whole year. I mean, ultimately, we know that, you know, it didn't end well for her, and she ended up going back to Mother Bhumi because her work was done. And I can never get out of my mind that Ramachandra, after she left him alone, that he had to endure ruling without her for 60,000 years. That's a long, long time to be without your partner, consort, you know. We hear about nowadays if the husband passes before the wife, you know, or the wife passes before the husband, usually they don't last a year. Or maybe they die within the same week, you know, because it's so tightly linked. And Ramachandra had to endure 60,000 years without Sita. Even when he did fire sacrifices, he had to set up a statue of Sita next to him so he could conduct the fire yajna as was prescribed at the time. Because if he were married, the wife had to be at the yajna that completed the ceremony, but Sita wasn't there. So we can remember Mother Sita and Janava Ma as wonderful role models, particularly with their wonderful, you know, devotion to the Lord. So I guess that's it. It's time to greet the deities. All glories to Srimati Janava Devi and Srimati Sita Devi, and all glories to Sri Madhu Pandit, and his devotion to Gadadhar Pandit was exemplary, and also to Gopinath, Krishna himself. Thank you very much. Haribol.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindadalaya Taksham Varhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Akom Vidamaniyam Vishesha Shobham
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Kriya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Jiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam.
Must be related to the alarm and everything going on. Probably. Hari Hari Vipale Janama 30. Hari Hari Vipale Janamagoenayu Hari Vipale Janamagonainu Manusha Janamabaya Radha Krishna Navajiya Radha Krishna Navajiya Manusha Janamapaya Radha Krishna Navajiya Janamapaya Radha Krishna Navajiya Janiya Shuniya Visha Koinu Shuniya Visha Koinu Janiya Shuniya Visha Koinu Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana Premadana Harinama Sankirtana Pratina Janmiloke Nitaya Samsara Vishanale Divanishi Ajvale Divanishi Ajvale Judaite na koinu paya na koinu paya Prajendra Nandanaye Sachi Sutta Hoilo Se Sachi Sutta Hoilo Se Balarama Hoilo Nitai Balarama Hoilo Nitai Dina hina yata chilo harina maudarilo harina maudari Tara shakshi jagai madai Haha Prabhu Nanda Sutta Vishabhanu Sutta Yuta Vishabhanu Sutta Yuta Karuna Koroho Ebaro Narottama Dasakaya Nateliho Rangapaya Narottama Dasakaya Nateliho Rangapaya Dasakaya Nateliho Rangapaya Toma Bine Ke Ache Amara Toma bine ke achet amara Manusha janama paya Radha Krishna nabajiya Paya Radha Krishna Navajiya Janiya Shuniya Visha Kaino Muni Abhishakoinu Hari Hari Vipale Janamagonainu Jaya Radha Goloka Nanda Radha Goloka Nanda Radhe Jaya Radha Goloka Nanda Radha Goloka Nanda Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Shri Vrindavan Dham Jaya Gaura Nitai Gaura Nitai Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai. O Lord Hari, I have wasted my life. Although I have taken the rare human birth, I have not served Radha and Krishna, and thus I have knowingly drunk poison. The treasure of divine love in Goloka Vrindavan has descended as the congregational chanting of Lord Hari's holy names. Why did my attraction for that chanting never come about? Day and night my heart burns in the fire of the poison of worldliness, and I have not accepted the means for relieving it. Lord Krishna, the son of the king of Braja, became the son of Sachi, and Balaram became Nitai. The holy name delivered all those souls who were lowly and wretched. The two sinners, Jagai and Madhai, are evidence of this. O Lord Krishna, son of Nanda, accompanied by the daughter of Vrishabhanu, please be merciful to me now. Narottama Das says, O Lord, please do not push me away from your reddish lotus feet, for who is my beloved except for you? Srila Narottama Das Thakur ki jai. Jito darpana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam Shriya Kairava Chandrika Vitarinam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Purivardhanam Pradipadam Purnam Niswadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Padam Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Nitami Amita Smarane Nakala Eta Jasita Vakriban Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishangi Hayanina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manarena Kirtaniya Sadari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishvare Kulakarni chitam babukada tavanama grahani bhavishyati Yugayutam Nimeshena Chakshusha Pravishayutam Sunyayutam Jalat Sarvam Govinda Vidahe Name Ashli Shavapalaratam Mamam Adarshanam Marmahatam Karutova Yatatatava Vidalam Pato Mat Pranastastusa Evana Para. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which announces the heart of all the dust accumulated for years. It extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benedictions to living beings, and thus you have hundreds. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy name, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant